Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. Well, there's no Hibs this week, thankfully, so the weekend hasn't been ruined. But we've got four very happy people to be chatting to you this week about something a bit different from usual. But we're joined again by Ryan. Ryan, how are we doing?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. How was the first weekend without Hibs? Was it a bit of a relief, or are you missing them already?
To be honest, it's good to get a little break.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we'll be saying that in 2 weeks' time. But Greg, how are you
Definitely
getting
not.
on?
Yeah, not bad at all, mate. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I was telling Ryan just before we started, I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself. Got a bit of a cold, and I come down hard with the man flu whenever I'm feeling ill. But guys, we've not got Liam and we've not got Ewan, but we've got someone even better. You guys love him whenever he's on. We've got the wonderful Michael Monan. Michael, how you doing?
All right, thanks for having me back. I noticed that it only takes two people to be out for me to return, so I'm glad that I could step up when required.
Yeah, and one thing that upset me that I'm sure all your followers are feeling as well. You're off Twitter for a bit. When can we expect the grand return?
I don't know, taking a temporary LOA, leave of absence, for anybody that doesn't understand what that means. No real reason, to be honest, just fancied a wee break, but I will be back at some point, much to the annoyance of most of my followers, I should imagine.
Yeah, I think the thing is with social media, you don't really realize how much you need a break from it until you take a break from it and you just kind of breathe life again. Um, but yeah, we're delighted to have you on. And for this episode, as I mentioned at the start, it's kind of different. We put a tweet out and we asked people for their controversial slash unpopular Hibs opinions. And essentially, because we've got no Hibs to talk about, we're going to talk about all those opinions. I have had the mighty fine job of copy and pasting all of those tweets onto a Word doc and splitting them into different categories. So we're going to go through them one by one, just for your benefit if you want to skip certain parts of the podcast. The categories we've got are player topics, manager topics, club culture, anything else about the club, and anything else in general that you guys said. Some quite out there ones that were nothing to do with Hibs, and one or two that weren't anything to do with football. But we'll go through them anyway. So guys, let's get fired straight into things. So the first thing we're going to cover is player topics, and the first one that came up is a bit controversial. Was a certain Mr. Starman, Martin Boyle. We got three tweets about him. The first was from Dave Graham, who said, Martin Boyle isn't very good. This was followed by Ben Monroe saying, Martin Boyle is overrated. And then Parmaham said, Martin Boyle deserves a better team. Ryan, we'll come to you first. Where do you stand on Martin Boyle? Is he slightly overrated? Is he not very good? What are you thinking on those comments?
No, I don't think he's overrated. I think he's got the ability to change a game and flip of a switch. You can see by the games that he's missed how important he is to us. So I wouldn't say he's overrated at all. He's probably our most important player. He's a key cog in the system, like definitely.
And Michael, a year ago today, I think, in my opinion, kind of summarises why Martin Boyle is kind of that star man and is the legend that he is today. Do you think that calling him not very good is a bit ridiculous?
I can understand why people have that opinion on him this time, but I think, just because he was trying to protect himself for the World Cup. Obviously, never worked for him, but that's probably why he seemed quite poor. Because it was the Aberdeen game, I think, which was the game we won, and then I think it was internationals after that, if I'm correct in thinking. So what I think's happened was he's went away on international break, and they've basically told him, "We want you for the World Cup. Just don't get injured." Basically. So then some would say stop trying for 2 months. But do you? I don't know if you do that. I don't know if you would say that, but do you stop going for after work drinks because you've got a Christmas night out coming up? Come on. So I think that I can understand folks saying that, but I think after the World Cup, we'll see Martin Boyle of old again, I think.
I hope so. Greg, you went on quite an impassioned rant last week about Martin Boyle. Is there any hints of guilt now that it's come out that he's not playing at the World Cup, or do you kind of stick by what you're saying?
Nah, do you know what? Live by the sword, you die by the sword. And I'm not gonna take it back. Look, it's unfortunate he's missed the World Cup, but yeah, I had my thoughts on it. I shared them, and I'm not going to take them back.
Fair enough. So, in summary, we can kind of understand it to an extent why you would say he's not very good. But we think that he's pretty good, especially for Hibs level. So another man that is quite controversial this season, has kind of divided the Hibs support, is a certain Mr. Ryan Porteous. We've got 2 tweets in about him. The first saying, Ryan Porteous is Hibs level, no more, from Leon. And then we had, take the highest offer for Porteous in January and run, from Owen Murick. Opinions on that, Michael?
Well,
We've not had
take
you
the
on.
highest offer in January. Sorry, just to jump in there because it's available on a pre-contract. So,
but if there's a lot of competition for him, could there not potentially be a couple bids come in?
Probably not. No, not the way he's been playing. No.
Yeah. Michael, we've not had your 2 cents on Ryan Porteous this season. Where do you stand on it? Are you craving a new contract for him, or do you think that Hibs kind of is his level and would be too bad a loss if he was to go?
I don't know, because I think he's been poor, but I think it's because he's trying to force a move and he's going about it the wrong way. I think that when he's on his game, when he's at his best, he's not going to be at us for very long because he's going to move on somewhere else. But he's just been really poor, I think, the last 6-7 games in particular anyway. Pretty much, to be honest. Since he got his call-up, I think he's sort of believed his own hype a wee bit, and I think he needs to... but you don't know what's going on behind the scenes either, but from just basically watching him, I think he'll not be going anywhere if he's playing like this.
And Ryan, do you want to round us off on Porteous?
I'd be inclined to agree with both points, to be honest. Maybe given the level of inconsistency that he shows, Hibs maybe is his level, hence why he's still here. And like Greg says, people won't be banging down the door to sign him in January. But if a bid was to come in, given his form, I suppose you wouldn't be upset to see him go.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And just conscious that we've got quite a lot to get through today, so we're just going to kind of take the next few points. We're going to nominate them to one person, and then we can just move on unless someone urgently wants to jump in. Feel free to. Greg, we'll come to you. Someone said David Marshall isn't any better than Matt Macey. That was from Ian M1875. Your thoughts?
Jesus.
I think anyone watching on YouTube, Michael Monan's just summed up my feelings on that statement. I don't really know what to say to that. Usually I've got something quick to say, but I just think he needs to get a grip of himself, to be honest. That's an absolutely ludicrous thing to say.
Is it controversial opinions or wrong opinions?
That's wild.
That's my fault.
I mean,
David Marshall could play centre mid for us.
for a start, the distribution is miles ahead in, and Matt Macey's have produced and shot stopping and talking, leading, commanding. So I mean, we could be here all night just discussing that alone. That's madness, to be honest.
Yep, I think that's one of those ones that no offence, Ian, who sent it in. We don't really need to respond on that too much. You got that one incredibly wrong. I hope you're going for bites because you got a few nibbles out of us if you were. Next one up, Mike Hibs said Jake Doyle-Hayes isn't as good as he's made out to be. Ryan, thoughts?
I think I spoke about this the other day. In isolation, I think Jake Doyle-Hayes is actually an alright player. Technically decent on the ball. He's got a good range of passing, good vision. But we've never really seen the best out of him when playing alongside certain people or playing in certain systems. So I don't know who's making him out to be a better player than what he is, because I think we're all aware of his capabilities and his limitations. So I wouldn't say that he's been overrated by the fans or that we're building him up. I think we're all very aware of the type of player he is.
Yeah, I think that Mike suffers from being good friends with myself, and I'm a massive Jake Doyle-Hayes enthusiast. So I'm going to boil it down to that. I think that I fairly rate Doyle-Hayes as as a competent player. I think that if his contract was running out, I would want to see it extended, and that's how I value him as a player.
Yeah, me too. I do like him. We're probably yet to see the best out of him. We've seen him have good spells, but not over a prolonged period of time.
Yeah. And moving on to another player who's kind of split the
just
bag.
on that, Michael McCuddy's a soup taker.
Thank you, Greg, for insinuating what Michael has for his dinner. But moving on to another player that split the opinions this season, Chris Cadden has been awful this season, says 1875 Josh. Michael, coming to you on that one. Where do you stand on Chris Cadden's season so far?
He's the worst player I can think of that has a song.
You're lucky Liam's not here, man.
Oh,
Absolute. He's just an athlete. He's just a runner. Very little technical football ability, and it's been shown.
ooh,
So I'm inclined to agree with the man who put that in.
wow. All right. Have we got any fight backs for that, or are we holding that as an opinion? Ryan, Greg, jump in or forever hold your peace.
I think
Take the floor, Greg.
I don't know. I mean, it's difficult because look, ultimately Cadden has maybe struggled at right back, right wing back. He's maybe been slightly better, but I still think he's got more to offer us. If I'm honest, I think that he's not really hit the heights. You know, I think his deliveries in the box can sometimes be poor, but I think that ultimately he's still got more to give us because what we've seen so far isn't good enough.
I
However,
think that
we need to caveat that where he is playing at right back, and that's absolutely not his position.
I think if you're talking this season, that's fair. But I do think that despite us being very poor last year, I think that Cadden had a pretty good season, especially in that final stretch where he was the only one that looked like he was putting any form of heart into it, which I know heart's not all the makings of a footballer, but it definitely helps.
Minimum.
No, I
Like
think
put
he's
your
got the
shin
tools
pads
and the
on.
attributes like to be what he needs to be in the Hibs team. Like he's definitely got a set of attributes that are valuable to us. It's just putting them into practice.
Ultimately, he needs to improve on his performances this season. That's the bottom line here.
Right, well, next week after we get Liam back on, he can berate us for allowing Michael to slander his favourite. But moving on, Greg, we'll come to you on this
Liam's
one.
got my number. Anytime.
Calling
Greg,
you out. Calling you out.
on Kevin Nisbet, we are all relying on Kevin Nisbet returning from injury and banging the goals in, and it's not going to happen. He's gotten better in folks' minds while being out injured than he actually is. And that's from Free Putt Petey. What do you think of that? Is Kevin Nisbet actually all hype and is he going to come back and flop?
No, I don't think he's all hype at all. I think he's proven that he can play at this level, do a good job for us. I think that's a bit of a silly comment, if I'm honest. Nobody's expecting him to come back and score all the goals. You know, heavily reliant on Boyle, Kukurevich. So I don't really get that one. Yeah, it's his job to score goals, isn't it? So ultimately, that's what he's paid to do. He's paid to put the ball in the back of the net. He's got Kukurevich and Boyle there who are doing that. So yeah, join in.
You hear him, Kev, I know you're listening. Join in with the goals. That's all we ask. And next up, Michael, come to you on this one. Kyle McGuinness. We've had two actually quite negative comments about him. We had from Ben Hickey, Kyle McGuinness is massively overrated. And John A said, of the 5 or 6 player Lee Johnson talked about letting go, McGuinness should be top of the list. Is McGuinness slander accepted at this point, or are we still holding hopes for him?
Is it? I don't know if it's slander, but I think it's practical. He's too much of a. You can't have a guy that you play once every 2 years and then he gets sent off. He's just. There's got to be other players out there that we can focus on getting, surely. Because you can't. He's what use is he to us? He's all well and good saying, "Oh, he's brilliant when he plays and all that," but he's no player. He's never available. So I wouldn't say it's slander. I just think he's not the messiah that we seem to pin our hopes on him being, and he's not reliable either.
Yeah, I say slander because I like dramatic words. But Greg, on you go.
Just to chime in on that, I mean, look, he came back from injury, everyone was excited, got himself sent off, and now he's injured again. So really, that's not going to occur at this football club. He needs to be fit and playing 30 odd games a season, in my opinion. But I think if he's not going to be able to do that, then what's the point? You're just paying him wages to sit in his arse every week. Hope he's enjoying his holiday though. Put
it this way. Scott Allen got released or let go of when he was more of an asset to us than Kyle McGuinness has been. And Scott Allen couldn't play any more than an hour. So.
All right, let's not bring back the Scott Allen.
That's what I think.
He was pushed for half a season before we let him go.
Yeah, but he's been better. He was better than Kyle McGuinness, who's not played. And then when he does play, he gets sent off. He's blown out his arse because he's not done anything for 2 years.
But listen, Monan, to be fair, right, the data was suggesting otherwise.
Fuck the data, mate. It's a real life. Games I've played
the
on
GPS
grass,
data was suggesting that he was fine in that game. Everyone else could see he wasn't, but the GPS data said he was fine.
Well,
sad stories when your manager's relying on GPS data and no his eyes.
GPS is not the only thing that is wrong with our football club, as we've found out.
Right, well, that is...
to be honest, though, it's probably GPS for the first half because you don't get a signal that updates any time after that. So, probably the first 5 minutes that we were relying on. Anyway,
sorry. Next up, Ryan, we'll come to you for this one. I've got 5 tweets to read out, so please do bear with me. It's Joe Newell. First tweet is, Joe Newell is pish by Cammy FTK. For the past 2-3 seasons, Joe Newell has been our best player and still currently is our best player, from Connor Handren. Joe Newell is our best player, from Richard. Newell is Dug Meat, from Dinlow. And Joe Newell, best player we currently have. Criticism against him after every defeat is unfair and is mainly due to the fact he's English, consistent performer, and deserves more praise. Ryan, that was from Lewis 1875. Ryan, where do you stand?
The last tweet's wild. You can't be flinging in things like that. Jesus.
No, Jaylee, let's grow up here. He's not getting slagged because he's English. Nobody cares.
Nah. That's xenophobic, man. Nah. I don't know. There's varying tweets there regarding Joe Newell.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think he does great things, and sometimes I think he does absolutely ridiculous things. Gives away needless fouls, gives away possession a lot. And other times I think he carries the ball really well. He gets us out of tight situations when we're playing out from the back. I don't really know where exactly I stand on him because he pisses me off one week and then he makes me happy the next. He has played a lot of games. He seems to be available for a lot of games, which shows a level of consistency, and he keeps himself fit. He doesn't pick up little niggling injuries like, for instance, Kyle McGuinness does. But I can definitely understand why people get frustrated with him. I wouldn't be going on saying he's dug meat and he's pissing that. And I certainly wouldn't be slagging him because he's English. Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, that is
wild, to be fair.
Yeah.
That is really wild.
We're all adults here, man.
All, you know. Joe Newell pisses me off when he plays well. Because he doesn't, because it's like, why can he do that every week? And he pisses me off when he plays poorly because you know he's better than that. He's a very frustrating player. However, you know, I do like him, to be fair. I must admit, I do think he's a good player. Just a wee bit more consistency from him would be perfect. And yeah, I don't mind his nationality.
Really neat and tidy, like he can be really neat and tidy on the ball. And he's decent in tight areas of the pitch, like.
Yeah. And Michael, I feel that after 5 tweets and seeing your reaction to the final tweet, we need to let you have your say on Joe Newell.
I don't really. Well, apart from I think the last one was a bit
extreme.
A wee bit sort of taking the title of the podcast a little bit too literally. But I'd be inclined to agree with both the lads. I think the thing that annoys me about him is that he doesn't shoot enough. When he can get the ball and you have the ball 20-25 yards out and he just have a shot, Joe. Do you know what I mean? Just try. Just have a wee shot. You never know what will happen. Do you know what I mean? And you might actually score. And then, but as Greg says, it does annoy me when he plays because he plays well. And I would say he doesn't. He's not one to shy away in big games. To be fair to him, but when we're playing teams that he needs to try and boss the game from, I think I don't know. He's frustrating. Just because I think probably because he just doesn't shoot. If he had more shots, I'd be more inclined to like him. Not that I dislike him, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't want to be one of those guys, but I am agreeing with all he's there. I do think there's a good player there, but he does frustrate me at times. But moving on, so that the first topic was kind of current squad, but the next one I've got a batch of tweets to read out, and it's about two people in the squad and a bit older, a bit about Paul Hanlon and Lewis Stevenson. So let me read them out, and then we can all give a quick say on our opinions on it, and then we can move on to the next. So Hanlon Stevenson need to go from Ali Gear. People who blame our downfall on Hanlon and Stevenson are talking pish. We need to get rid of Porto in January as his head's gone and he wants away from Owen Frederick. Paul Hanlon should have been emptied years ago from Disco Stew. Paul Hanlon and Lewis Stevenson have never been good enough and shouldn't still be playing, Chris Bell. Hanlon and Stevenson only there out of sentiment because of 2016 from Brad Arthur. When Hanlon and Stevenson hang up their boots, football moan we don't have enough players who understand what it means to play for Hibs. And that was from our very own Liam. So yeah, essentially, Paul Hanlon, Lewis Stevenson, are they here on merit, or are they just kind of riding that wave of 2016 that Hibs fans can't seem to get over?
Who's going first?
You spoke first, so you crack on.
Right. Okay. So I have thoughts on this. Paul Hanlon, okay, is one of these players that when he's not playing, you notice he's not there. Okay. And Paul Hanlon also, which is not even his fault, we've never replaced him. All the centre-halves that we've had in the time when people have been saying, oh, we should get rid of them, well, none of them have been good enough to play when he's not there. And Lewis Stevenson's not going to play every week, but Lewis Stevenson would tell you that himself. But I don't understand. I think defensively, Lewis Stevenson is as solid a fullback as we're likely to get. Whilst going forward, he's not obviously the best, but I think defensively he's solid enough. And again, who have we had in that's been better than him? Apart from Josh Doig, obviously, he's not here.
Big, you seem to have opinions on it.
Monan's not wrong, to be fair. I'm not Paul Hanlon's biggest fan, but you need to bring someone in to replace him properly and not just have him floating about and that. So it's one of them. I feel like they're both on the conveyor belt to coaching at the club, and I feel like they're just tying out for that. Because let's be honest, they both will be coaches at the football club. The club aren't just going to dump them now. So we need to replace Hanlon or bring someone in better than Hanlon. And Stevenson, you can play a few positions, so you can probably stay on the bench, to be honest. However, I don't agree with what Liam said about there won't be enough players at the club that get it. I think that's wrong. I'm going to pull him up on that one because English Joseph Newell gets it, in my opinion. And I really do think he gets it. Boyle gets it. I think Marshall gets it. I think the majority of them do get it. I think they understand what it means to play for the Birmingham Football Club. Maybe they don't always show that, but I think they do absolutely understand it.
And Ryan, do you want to lead us off from those two?
First of all, I think it's a bit unfair whenever there's criticism, they come as a pair. They're two separate people. They always seem to come together. If Hanlon has a bad game, then it's always Hanlon and Stevenson need to get out. But Louis Stevenson's shown for a long time that he's got what it takes to play at a decent enough level, even in the twilight years of his career. I think he proved that last year, winning one of the Player of the Year awards. Like Greg said, he's very versatile. He can play in a few different positions. He's fit, energetic. He's absolutely solid. I think Michael said that as well. See, when he plays at fullback, he's solid. Decent on the ball. Won't offer you much going forward, but I think he is worth having around still as a squad player. And again, Michael hit the nail on the head when it comes to Paul Hanlon never being replaced. Left-footed centre half. Don't think we've signed one since Paul Hanlon came through, man. So yeah, it's hard to get rid of people when you haven't got anybody to replace them with. So that's my standpoint on it.
Was the last one we signed not Liam Fontaine?
We had Liam Fontaine and then
left-footed centre half that we've had.
We got Ryan McGivern on loan, who was half centre back, half left back. He was great.
Geez.
Oh God. But all right. So the next one, we're just going to wrap through the rest of the players. So these are former players or legends. Big Dell said Rob Jones should still be first choice centre half. Why not? He's tall. Craig Healy said my favourite centre back partnership I've seen at Easter Road was Rob Jones and Chris Hogg. That was a pretty fun time. Obviously that
Solid.
very, very enjoyable. Sean Nichols said David Murphy is the Hibs GOAT. Hard to disagree with. His touch was like an angel's. Someone said, oh, this is a good one. Marciano wasn't as good as some would have you believe, from Soze4703. Thoughts on that? Is Marciano as good as Hibs fans make out, or did he have some flaws that Hibs fans didn't really focus on whilst he was here?
He definitely had flaws, certainly when it comes to distribution and coming for crosses. His shot stop was unbelievable. His one-on-ones, he was fantastic. But I think since he's left the club, his stock's probably risen a little bit, just because there's kind of the myth surrounding how good he was. He was brilliant, don't get me wrong, but he certainly had parts to his game that were definitely worse than Marshall.
Michael, you look surprised when I said that Rocky was overrated. Thoughts?
Overrated by who?
By Hibs fans. Since he's left. Has he been overhyped since he left the club?
No. I think he was good. I think he's an international goalie. I think he was good. As Ryan said, his kicking was terrible. He was a wee bit shy to come off his line, but I think he was as good a goalie as we'd had for a long time before he came in.
He was at the time.
Which might have made him seem to be better than what he was, because obviously we were used to shite goalies. But no, I don't think he was overrated at all, or is overrated. I think he was good for us, and that's about
it. Yeah. Greg, we'll come to you for this one. Colin Gray said Gordon Ray was overrated. Any thoughts on that?
Why are you coming to me for that, mate?
Because
I'm 28. I'm not 48.
Well, all right. Well, your attitude is at a 58, so let's just move on from that question. Pakujabi was a scapegoat from Ian Russell. I thought he was pretty poor, to be honest. I think if he was a scapegoat, it's probably warranted. Any disagreements there?
No
Next
comment.
question.
The next one was my rant about Effie Ambrose. My point was essentially, I think that Bomb Scare was entirely inaccurate. I thought he was very consistent for Hibs. I thought he carried the ball really well, and I think that just because some dodgy performances for Celtic, he was branded a Bomb Scare. I just think that's kind of bullshit, to be honest.
Do you know what, Harry? Right? Do you know what really pisses me off?
Go for it.
People say, I want my players to be brave on the ball. Then they are brave on the ball, and then they get slated. Effie Ambrose was incredible. Absolute caviar. He would go past players like training cones, mate. The boy was incredible. So good. But because he made a couple of mistakes, he's a bad guy.
And he wasn't
not a bad guy.
Those mistakes weren't even for us, mate. That's the worst thing.
Well, people just branded him fucking all this, and I thought he was superb, to be honest.
Risk for reward. I thought he was brilliant as well, man. That's the kind of guys you want to go and watch. Yeah, somebody that's willing to take a risk.
You show me a Hibs player that doesn't make a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. As a defender, you'd probably get punished more, but I'd rather he was brave on the ball and try to play a bit than shy away and hide.
And well, guys, that wraps up all the player questions we've got today. Now we're moving on to manager topics. We've got someone here that I know are going to get a couple of your guys' backs up, so let's get fired straight into them. From Jake Gapper, he said John Collins could have been a fantastic manager for us. And then someone else followed that by saying it's just a shame he had John Collins' personality. If John Collins wasn't who John Collins is as a person, I agree, he could have been great. His ideas and the way he wanted to play was all great, from David Reynolds. So that's your two contexts around John Collins. Could he have been, or can he still be, a great manager for Hibs? Open to
no. His management days are finished. Like, they're gone.
Yeah.
He could have been.
I'm just going to say, I do agree with the points, but I do agree with Ryan as well. I agree with everyone.
Yeah. He'll not go back into management, but I think, look, he didn't want players to go out all the time. He didn't want players to go out drinking, and he wanted them to be the best they could be and the fittest they could be. And he was branded a bad guy for it. because he would show off where he was, and I don't think that's a bad thing. He was trying to show them what they could achieve. Too many soft players in that team, I think.
And the good thing about John Collins as well,
go in the piss.
John Collins would know exactly what Celtic players have for their breakfast, so we wouldn't even have to get the players to go and ask the players. So moving on to the next one with a picture of Sheffield United second in the league. Gary McKay said we should never have fired Hecky. Things would have turned around when Boyle came back and Deutsch started scoring. Is Hecky...
Just stop. Move on. No, I'm not listening to that.
Greg says that was recency bias.
Right, so it's just shite. Like, it's absolute shite. He had the new manager now saying he was clueless. He tried to do technical things in a league where maybe things aren't as technical. I don't think the English Championship's at a greater standard, if I'm honest. I think it's hyped up because it's English football, but I don't think it's really much better than what we serve up.
Yeah, I agree. And then next we've got 3 tweets back to back. Ryan, I think you'll be the kindest on this one, so we'll come to you first and then we'll let Michael and Greg battle out who gets to speak second. Jack Ross shouldn't have been sacked and should be brought back. All home games except Old Firm/Heart should be £10 any ticket for the rest of the season from Elite Tigers. So essentially from that, Ross shouldn't have been sacked and should be brought back. And then Andrew McBee, friend of the pod, said Jack Ross shouldn't have been fired, and then a sneaky wee gif of like a smile. And then Peter Sockold said, I agree, should have got to the end of the season and seen where we stood then. It was a stupid time to sack him. Thoughts on Jack Ross's sacking time and if he should be brought back?
Right, first of all, I'm not for bringing people back. They got sacked for a reason, That's it. No more, no second chances, all right? He maybe should have got the cup final, because all we done was put somebody in interim charge, although he was the voice in the dressing room that led us to that massive slump. And I definitely wanted him sacked after I was dragging my arse to like Livingston midweek and we were serving up absolute tripe. But I would rather not see that ever again. So, it was right to sack him. Of course it was. Maybe who we got in next wasn't it didn't quite justify the fact that we got rid of him to bring in somebody that was even more inexperienced. But no, we had to get rid of him. It just wasn't working.
Michael, agree with that? Any disagreements?
Oh, I agree. Look what he's done since. There's your answer.
Greg, I know you want to get him back just so you can scribble on the bed sheet again, but
why are people so determined to bring these jokers back?
Yeah.
Like, he achieved nothing with Hibs. Third or whatever in a shite season when things
weren't even there.
Aye. And even during that season we were absolutely grim at some points. I mean, I'm not having it. I was at the Livy game, his final game, and wow, that was more than enough. And to be honest, he was on a shite run. Should have been sacked. Probably should have been sacked before that. Didn't deserve the cup final at all. So move on.
Yeah. It was after the Ross County game. I was so livid after that. That's maybe the angriest I've been in an actual football stadium. I was fuming. But moving on. Speaking of someone that we got after him, Mikey Love said we shouldn't have sacked Maloney. The January recruitment was that horrendous. No one could have done any better. I disagree with that. I think Maloney was appointed at the wrong time. I just don't think he came across as much of a leader. I think he came across as a nice guy, and for the state that Hibs were in at that time, I just don't think he was the right appointment, and I don't think at the moment he's ready for a job of a club as big as Hibs. Michael, we'll go to you. Do you see any merit in Maloney?
It's a weird one because I could understand what he was trying to do, and I could understand that it wasn't going to work as well. I think he'd have been good to have as a coach, but he's not your number one man. He's the face of the management squad. So when things go to shit, he's not the person you're wanting to be fronting up for it or to be going through the players for it. You need somebody has a bit more of fear about them. And to be honest, I don't think MD was scared of Sean Maloney. And you need a fear factor if you're going to be a successful manager or leader, I think. But I don't dislike him. I wasn't even one of these people that was wanting to get rid of him. I just thought we had to get rid of him.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I agree with that. And Ryan, Greg, want to chime in, or do you think that's valid?
Just don't think
That's
we covered
pretty
ourselves
valid,
in
to be
their
honest.
glory. I know that what Michael's saying is absolutely right. He had big ideas, maybe at the wrong club, wrong infrastructure, but the board didn't really cover themselves in any glory, sacking him after such a short space of time. Understand it probably had to be done, but I mean, what did he get, like 13 games? It just shows that the recruitment of the manager, they got it totally wrong. If you're hiring somebody and then sacking them again after so little time, you've got to hold your hands up and admit, like, we got that totally wrong.
Not the best
That's
of
on them.
looks. And speaking of not great looks, well, FFS Hibs said Pat Fenlon would have kept us up. I remember being very disgruntled that season. And yeah, thoughts on Pat Fenlon keeping Hibs up?
It's getting really bad now. We're way back to Pat Fenlon days. Huh?
The Twitter name sums up the first three letters of that name sum up my reaction to that statement.
Yeah, Pat Fenlon, as nice as he was never the answer. So yeah, let's move on from that. And that was our last manager question. So next, we've got quite a bulky section here. We've got on fan culture. So these were kind of comments that people sent in about the way that fans act at games, and we can just kind of dive into them. Just for the sake of time, we'll get one each, and if anybody wants to chime in another one, then feel free. So Ryan, we'll come to you first. There is a toxic culture somewhere within our club that stifles opportunities to flourish or achieve success. I don't know what it is though, whether it's personal structure, expectation, fans, who knows. Until we find it and fix it, we will continue to underachieve. From Mel Clements. Is there substance to that? Do you think that there is some form of toxic culture that's prohibiting the club?
That's quite a broad question. Obviously, if you're talking about the club as a whole, that's quite a big number of people, and obviously the culture within that big group of people would be different in certain areas. But it's quite a hard one to answer, because sometimes I feel as though there is a bit of a mediocre mentality within the squad sometimes, and they're happy enough just to bob along and finish top six and they'll be happy. I don't know if toxic's necessarily the right word, but toxic would suggest to me that there's a lot of bust-ups and a lot of fallouts, but there's certainly something that makes me think we are quite happy just to accept the status quo.
Yeah, I think that's a valid answer. I can't even see. I think that's a valid answer. And next, from Ian T, he said, abusing our own players is not supporting the team. I think that's a fair point. I think that we've all at some point in our life probably abused a player where we know we probably shouldn't have. But yeah, not fully valid. I think that Hibs fans, especially due to some of the performances we've seen over the last few seasons, have probably been a bit guilty of that. But next, Michael, come to you first. Stephen McKenzie said, we have far too many people in our support with a soft spot for Celtic. Thoughts on that? Is that accurate?
I can understand. Yeah, I would say that's pretty true. Yeah. I would prefer to have had him ask me the question so I could say, well, what do you mean? But because he's not. Yeah. I think a lot of the songs that we've now got are basically rip-off Celtic chants, like the same tunes and all. I think that's a bit sort of questionable. Although when we play Celtic, I wouldn't say that was. I don't think there's going to be the people that are going to start celebrating the Celtic score or that. I don't know. I think a lot of it comes from social media, Twitter, and that it sort of magnifies the problem, and and a lot of it is sort of just immaturity and just try to get bites off people and all. That's the sort of world we now live in. So I think there's definitely an element of that. There are Hibs fans that say they hate Rangers more than Hearts, something I'll never understand. And that's from all generations, by the way. That's from people in the 70s saying that as well. So it's not just a new thing. I don't know. if it's a soft spot is the right thing. I just think that they sort of use them as a ploy to wind other folk up, is what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And one thing from my perspective is I absolutely love Old Firm games, and I always lean on the side of Celtic. That's not because I prefer Celtic. Well, obviously, I prefer Celtic to Rangers, but like I don't have a soft spot for them. But even when it comes to Europe and stuff, like if Rangers fail in Europe, it's funny. If Celtic fail in Europe, it's oh shit coefficient. So I don't think it's a soft spot, but it's less hatred for them than I do for other clubs. I don't know if people want us to put Celtic in that same bracket, but personally I don't. So Stephen, if that counts as a soft spot, I'm sorry for letting you down. And then I'm aware you guys also want to talk about it, but we've got a lot to get through. But Greg, come to you next from Logan Simpson. What a legend. He said Irish heritage should be more celebrated and we should have more tricolours at games. What's your thought on that?
Difficult one. I think an Irish heritage should be celebrated more, if I'm honest. I feel like the club have tried to take a proper step back from it, possibly because they're worried about seeming too much like Celtic, who are a tribute act. But I think we should be celebrating it more, if I'm honest. I just like the club have clearly stepped away from it. They don't want anything really to do with it. In terms of more tricolours, I don't really know if that's celebrating the heritage, but I think there's tricolours at the games anyway. But I think celebrating your Irish heritage could be done in better ways than just bringing tricolours to the game.
Fair. And to yourself, Ryan, one of our favourites, Fattest Prick, has said it is mental that the stadium is not full every game when the Cup Parade of 2016 showed just how big a support we have. We should support the team no matter what, not just turn up when we are doing all right. Also, as a side note, he said Lewis Stevenson is far better footballer than anyone who hates him. Fully agree on that. But in terms of we should have a sold out stadium every week, I think the financially and whether I never see as a good excuse, I fully agree personally. And I think that it's pathetic that we don't get at least 15 to 17,000 on a weekly basis. Even if the numbers say that, it's never more than I would say probably 11 to 13,000. Ryan, I've asked you a question, I've done a you and I've started answering it myself. What's your opinion on that?
I have never understood how that stadium's not full every week, given the, as you say, the amount of people that turned out for the Cup Parade, population of the city, accessibility when it comes to public transport, although ScotRail are being dicks right now. And just the fact that, I mean, there's loads of initiatives in place for, the Friday night football, cheaper tickets. And if it takes that to fill the stadium, then so be it. I don't care about paying full price for my season ticket and other people getting in cheaper. I'm not one of those guys. Do what it takes to fill the stadium. Better the atmosphere reflects onto the pitch, and better the team will. Hopefully, the better the team will be in return for us. These kind of guys want to play in front of big crowds and almost make it partisan for the opposition. I think it plays into your advantage. It makes the home venue a bit of a fortress if you can use it to your advantage. Neil Lennon done it quite well during his time. I think he had one of the highest average attendances, didn't he, when he was there? Was it not about 18,000 or something like that?
That heart attack Hibs period towards the end of that season was absolutely mental.
I think Hibs should be doing what it takes to sell at the stadium week in, week out.
Fair. And next, we're going to move on. Liam Blues, for Michael, this one's for you. People have agendas against certain players and ignore every other player in the park when we play poor. They watch with blinkers on, waiting for players to make mistakes so they can have a constant dig at them on social media. Do you think that's true? Do people kind of get their agenda set and then just attack players?
Absolutely. We touched on it earlier. Well, Ryan mentioned it earlier about Hanlon and Stevenson is like they do as if they come as a pair. I mean, people would, if Hanlon made a mistake and Stevenson was on the park, folk would say Hanlon and Stevenson need to get out of the club, even though Stevenson's done nothing wrong. People, it's not even a social media thing. It's even at Easter Road, there's guys when like within earshot of me, as soon as somebody makes a mistake, it's fuck's sake, like all the time. Some players aren't good enough, right? And I'll be the first to admit that I have aired my thoughts on players that I don't think are good enough, but I want them to do well. Of course I do. It's just, do I think that I want players to make a mistake to make me seem right. No, I don't. And I don't know. I think social media, again, for the reasons I said earlier, it probably makes it worse because it magnifies it, and people can tweet straight away. People don't even speak out loud. Like, it's different having a voice and shouting. But if you're tweeting constantly, you could be somebody that doesn't even talk, but you've still got the ability to voice an opinion that's negative or that's non-constructive, I would say. It would be my long answer to that question.
Wait, well, we like long answers. We're on our podcast for a reason, mate. And then, Greg, we'll come to you. I'm going to loop a bunch of these together because I think they're all relatively similar to an extent. So we got from Chrissy Barry. He said, "We are absolutely shite and inconsistent, and yet our fans demand third place, etc., every season based on some high standard that's made up in their heads." JPJ White said, "The fans have brought this on themselves by having unrealistic expectations. They don't give managers enough time." FM Edinburgh said, "Hibs fans expect too much success and would rather get shot of a manager than have a long-term plan in place. Also, the fans who want Lennon back are just attention seekers." And then what was the last one? Ewan Boyle said, "Hibs support are far too accepting of mediocrity." And Ryan at Specky See You Next Tuesday said, "Sentimentality is ranked higher than merit and competitive standards for far too effing long." Aware I gave you a lot to deal with there, but essentially, Hibs, one, are a bit too sentimental. Two, have massively high expectations, despite the fact there's not really too much in recent years to base that off. What do you think of them? Those tweets there I just threw at you.
Was it you and Boyle that said they accept mediocrity?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, he's spot on. The others I'm not sure about. We just meant to be happy with top six. Is that what we're meant to accept now? Because we can't set it too high. For me, we should be demanding third as a given. To be honest, I think that this football club for too long has been mediocre, accepting of defeat, glorious defeat, whatever you want to call it. I think that the fans expecting third place, I don't think that's pie in the sky, to be honest. No, I think that we are too accepting of mediocrity, and for me, it's clear to see. People, you can't do that. You can't sack managers if they're not good enough. Let's give them time. But then, with that, just comes mediocrity because you're only sticking with them for the sake of it. No, I think that the football club needs a bit of a culture change, if I'm honest. We really need to be pushing on for looking for a third every season. I mean, folks slated Joe Savage when he came out and said, "Oh, we'll be splitting the Old Firm." He's not wrong for saying that, though. Why shouldn't that be the aim, to go and split the Old Firm? Nothing wrong with that. But people think, "Oh, you can't touch the top two. Third, I don't know. Top six will do it." No, not for me, thanks.
The thing is, for me, my expectation isn't to finish third every year. It's to compete for third and at least be in the race. I think there's far too many seasons where we're not there. Like the season we finished with Lennon, as we mentioned earlier, I think, did we end up finishing fifth that year or fourth?
Fifth.
Fifth. For me, we put enough into that season. I wasn't disappointed with finishing fifth. Whereas, and we were very close to being pushing second that year. Because of how bad Rangers were. But no, fully agree, Greg.
I think who said that people who want Lennon back are attention seekers?
FM Edinburgh.
I think a lot of people can resonate with that side. I think a lot of people really appreciated that side and the way that we played and the way that the manager was. I don't think they're attention seekers. I think they're just looking for something like that again. I don't think it's a bad thing. Maybe not Lennon, but why do you not want your team running the ground for you and a manager that's passionate like that? Why would you not want that?
And then one tweet I forgot to lump in with that. Michael Gallagher said, "The manager's job is a poison chalice. A prime Sir Alex Ferguson would fail as a Hibs manager."
That's just lies.
I think
absolute lies.
Bit intense that. But Ryan, we'll come to you next on this one. Again, not a particularly happy one in terms of the fan culture these days. But Kyle Patterson said, we have a lot of pricks in our support. I've never had problems with fans of other clubs and only had altercations with other Hibs fans. And then he said, and then Lofty Walker said, the fans are the worst part of supporting Hibs. Do you think that the fans are that bad, or do you think these two are just kind of negative Nancy's on this occasion?
If I speak, I am in trouble.
Yeah, I suppose you've had a few, but the thing is, for me, like,
No,
in terms
the thing is, you could say, well, if you got on with fans of other clubs, then you know the rest.
yeah.
I don't want to say it because I don't want to upset anybody. Do you know what I mean? Because it sounds like people are a bit snowflakey. I don't know, but there's pricks in every support though, mate. Listen, if you take 20,000 people from anywhere in Scotland, you're going to get pricks. It's just a percentage thing. Just get over it, man.
Do you know what though, right? At the end of the day, that just because you support Hibs doesn't mean you can't be a prick. That's what I mean. Like,
I'm a prick. I support Hibs.
You're a prick, then, correct.
I'm the prick,
I
though.
just
Get
don't
what I
get
mean?
it. Like, you go to football, you're not going to agree with everyone, are you? So you're going to think, oh, you're a bit of a prick. Come on. This is, grow up.
guys, it's behind
We're
me.
here
The
for you,
football's a
though,
prick.
mate. We're here for you. We're here for you.
Do me a favour.
All right, we're
DMs
nearly
are
over this
open.
section. One more in the fan culture section, and we're moving on. Don't worry, Michael. We'll come to you for this one. I didn't put the name down. I'm sorry, whoever said this. Hibs today is strewn with confidence players that with a bit more patience and understanding would have flourished even more. And the two examples he gave were David Witherspoon and Colin Nish. If Hibs had more patience, could we have seen some top quality players out of those two?
Colin Nish.
Right.
Jesus.
Right. Okay. For the benefit of the audio listeners, I have turned around my chair from a sideways angle to full on frontal.
You're doing
Right.
FIFA expert mode.
So, David Witherspoon, I didn't mind him when he was at Hibs. I thought he was somebody that tried. He gave his all. He wasn't world class, but he wasn't by any means the worst player on the pitch for us. I think that where we were at the time, he was not where we wanted to be. I think that he's very comfortable at St Johnstone. I think it's a football club and a team of playing that suits him personally. I don't think that he's somebody that we should be looking to pursue back to Easter Road. Colin Nish, I don't know if this is recency bias because he was somehow brought in for a Legends game, but I think as that list went on, it was sort of just people that they could get to say aye. I think also that list reminded me of pointless answers that you would have for any question related to Hibs, just all the ones that could have been pointless. Colin Nish is not somebody that should have been at Hibs any longer than what he was, and that is my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Michael, for staying reserved, because we can see that there's a beast waiting to be released on that question. Let's move on.
Zen now.
Good stuff. We're moving on to our third topic, which is our fourth topic, which is any random things about clubs that you guys decide to tweet us. So we're going to start about the kits. So essentially for this one, all of you are going to say agree or disagree, and then we're just going to move on to the next question. We'll make it quick fire round. Jeff Ashton said the cabbage kit is a wee bit shite.
Disagree. In fact, I'm going to say he's miles off.
That's not the rules, Michael. It's agree or disagree, my man.
I'm going to agree with him.
Ooh, okay. I'm sorry, Greg, for this.
Purely in the interests of fairness.
Noising me up.
Balance.
Lyle Henderson said, our last two home strips have been a bit shit.
Disagree.
Home kits are always shit. So, but the away ones, that's where you really want a good one. Home ones are just staples.
Ryan, agree or disagree?
I disagree. I think they've been different to the norm. Like, They've tried something different with both strips.
And speaking
And
of which,
the map Edinburgh and obviously integrating the design of the stadium into it. It's been different, man.
and speaking of which, Kaiser Soze said maps/stadiums have no place on kits.
It's 2022, man.
I would disagree with that. I think it's important to have something that shows what you're trying to, because it's a product that you're trying to sell people as well, not just a football kit.
If that was the case, you just wear one strip for the whole
tricolour on it.
You probably would, by the way. If you could get away with it, you'd have a Donegal strip, man. Hibs badge on it.
All right, and then Billy King of the North, he said bottle green is a nicer home top colour than emerald green.
Lies. Just straight up lies.
More than that myself.
Nah.
Oh,
Emerald
all right.
green all the way.
Emerald Isle, emerald green.
Guys, I've found Michael's burner account. Paul Morton said the home kits are normally shite and boring. Away is always better.
Would agree.
Me and Mr. Morton obviously agree, even though that is not my burner account.
That is definitely more.
Yeah,
I thought
you've never been off. You've
a bit more
never
of a
been off.
deviation of your
There's only one Morton I knew prior to that question, and that's Greenock Morton.
Good guy, Greenock Morton.
And then you know what? We'll stick with a true or false for the next few, just to get through a few. That playing Scott Junior said playing the Hibs way is a myth.
Okay.
Agree or disagree?
Well, depends what way the manager wants to play.
It's like Hibs class, isn't it? It's just something old guys say on Hibs forums.
It's proper Hibs da Facebook stuff. That
Is it?
Aye,
playing.
I agree.
Playing the Hibs way. What is the Hibs way? Accepting mediocrity.
All right, moving on. Neil Whelan said the hot water in the Upper West toilets is too hot.
What, there's hot water in the
there.
Upper West toilets?
He then followed it up by saying he was joking because there's no hot water in the whole fucking stadium. Yeah, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Agree.
Fully agree.
Then, I think one that we're all going to fully and 100% agree on. David Burnley said, tremendous recruitment department.
Aye. Revered all around the world. Anyone else?
Gambia.
Manager takes the blame as well.
Aye, it's a collective.
The recruitment team of the scapegoat. Ultimately, manager's got a lot to answer for as well.
It's the sum of all parts, It's the sum of all parts.
Yeah.
It's a collective.
He says yes or no, so it's not fully on them.
Yeah. So in the middle. And then we've got another one from Mel Clements. We've got two in a row actually, so we'll look them together. Hibs should provide opportunity for fan ownership to make the club more accountable. Maybe we'll stop going through managers and transfers like toilet roll. And then followed up by saying, all we ever hear from Hibs via media channels is good news. Everything is so rosy, but it isn't, is it? We aren't a transparent club with fans. With the fans, should I say. Is that true? Would fan ownership help with the kind of manager cycle that we're going through and transparency with the club, or do you think that's kind of wishful thinking? Open to the floor.
It would be like hell in a cell at board meetings, mate. Could you imagine? Nobody agrees with each other anyway, so let's get all the folk that don't agree with each other in the one room making decisions for the club. Perfect. Sounds good to me.
And since we're a support full of pricks, then obviously it's a recipe for disaster, isn't it?
Wait a minute. We're a support full of pricks and xenophobes, man.
We could get other supporters in as well to own us, and then might get along better.
Oh no!
In all seriousness, I would agree with the second part about the fan, the Hibs media, Hibs TV. It's like, I don't know, it's like a shrine or something. It's like a cult. It's actually like a cult. You can't say anything bad, or they'll never post anything, even though we're actually not very good. There'll always be something trying to be. It's just, they're living in a different world, I think.
Do you know what times I miss? I miss when we're absolutely shite, getting pumped every week, but murder mystery tickets were on sale.
Oh, the good old days.
They were the days, man. Superb.
Aye. All right. Well, next up, Neil Whelan said Graham Donald was ruined by positional change. Graham Donald. Anyone?
No idea.
No. Well, Neil, you know what? We agree with you. Thank you. Ewan
Agree.
McAleese said we are really quite pish. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be controversial or unpopular, but at the moment, I think we all agree. Is that a fair comment?
Yep.
Yes.
I think he's been kind there, actually.
Kaiser Sozzy, not Kaiser Sozzy, Kaiser Sozzy said Hibs 94-95 season was our best forward line post famous five. Wright, Jackson, McAllister.
I was born in '92, man, so I can't comment on that.
You can what?
I was born in '94, so I don't know.
You were born in a great year for striker, Greg. Well in.
Someone that was born in 1996. I don't actually remember it. So.
Aye. And as a person who was born in '98, just so you've got all our years of birth out there, I also have no clue. Jack Taylor said the Block 7 drum is a relentless din. Get shot of it. The East Stand should have been built with 2 tiers. Ron Gordon still gives me the fear. That's 3 comments that we can kind of dissect there. The drum, yes, no. I think that the guy's a bit annoying when he does his drum solos for no reason at all. Does kind of piss me off, I'm not going to lie.
He sits quite close to you, Harry. Is that right?
Aye, he does. I'm not too far.
Sorry, Michael, on you go.
No, I was just going to say, I can't really hear it from where I sit.
Fair.
Not really an issue. The East Stand looks... I think it would... I don't know if it could be tiered now, but
yeah,
I think it should have been tiered because it's... When the times that I've sat in that stand, it's steep.
I like it, but the thing is, for me, like, you're missing out on a hospitality trick there, because you can just put things inside a stand if it's 2-tiered, but you can't do that with a single stand, or a single tier stand.
Should have kept the
To be fair, Harry, you look like Brennan for Step Brothers, so you've probably the best to talk about drum sets and that.
Greg's been holding that for about 5 minutes and just waiting to see when he can throw it in there. Thank you, Greg.
I don't understand why we need a 2-tier. I don't mind the way it is, to be honest.
Because you don't
maybe
sit
the cost when they were building it.
Right, because I sit in the West Stand with my granddad and we have a great time.
All right. Well, anybody want to comment on Rob Gordon gives him the fear? Or are we all kind of
Has there been an incident there, or
no? I think just in general.
Was there any context to that?
No, just Rob Gordon still gives him the fear.
Behaving.
Aye.
I mean, I don't really.
To the famous five.
Oh God!
Does he give you the? I don't know.
Like, you know, when you wake up like hungover on a Sunday and you've got the fear, like that feeling. Ugh.
I wouldn't say he gives me that feeling, to be honest.
Good.
No. Unless I've seen him on a Saturday night, then I might have that feeling on a Sunday night.
In the shack.
The love shack.
All right, we're going to go through a few more solo questions just to get through a few. Ryan, we'll come at you first. High B Hibernian is a banger of a song and should be the song that plays as players come out from Blue Brazilian Toffee.
What is it just now? That train spotting tune? Is that what comes on when they come out? I don't know. It doesn't really make much difference to me what song's on. Like, it is a banger though, especially when your man's getting that to the Hearts fans. I'd play it. Cool, go for it.
Yep, fair enough. Thank you, Blue Brazilian Toffee.
Just on that, has everyone watched Sunderland Till I Die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's choosing that song. Just get Adagio for strings on, mate.
Tiesto.
And I don't know if any of you guys have been in the hospitality bars, but Andrew Welsh says the refurbed Albion bar looks cheap. Is that a fair comment?
I can't afford to get in there, man. He's calling it cheap and I can't afford to get in there. Jesus.
I've been at it. It looks all right. I would pay the money though. But does it look cheap? I don't know. I don't think. I think it's open, but I don't think it's done. That makes sense. I think there's still work to be done. Like on the pitch, of course. But yeah. No, I don't know. I need to go in again to finalise that opinion. I just wanted to make sure the guy got his question answered.
Yes, thank you, Michael. So it might look cheap, but it doesn't look cheap. It looks undone. That's the answer. All right, so anybody can answer this
To
one.
be fair,
Ron?
I mean, I know that he goes on about the bars, but to be fair, I don't know if anyone else can get in there when McBee's man marking players as they come into the time. There's more man marking done in there than there is in the pitch.
Oh, belter.
McBee, we do love you. Don't worry, it's all out of love. But Ron Gordon not bidding for Haaland or Mbappe shows a real lack of ambition from D Harper 8 to 8. Sure. Well, we should actually
go up to Mbappe though. Expect him to win knock-ons.
Oh God, Christ! We'd feel bad for him. We'd start asking questions on these things like, does Mbappe deserve better? So maybe we shouldn't have bidded for them because it'd be a shame. Right, I reckon you'll like this question, G. Ray Forsyth said, "We have no fight whatsoever and suspect we'll be like this for years." Is that fair?
Well, there's only one man to say this. Roy Keane.
Yes, Roy. All right, before Greg implodes with a joy.
To be honest, Lee Johnson will probably be almost fighting.
Aye.
So he's just almost everything, isn't he?
Almost 5 foot.
Almost tall in a garden gnome.
This one I'm going to take myself because I think it's a bit silly. KWHITMD said, finishing 10th is only marginally worse than finishing 4th. If you finish 4th, you get Europe. If you finish 10th, you've just narrowly avoided relegation. Not really sure what you're getting at there. This isn't the Premier League where you've got 20 teams and half of them are irrelevant. This is a team in which you've only got about 4 teams that are relevant. So that's a silly comment, and we're not going to talk about that any further. Sorry if that was offensive. Ryan, we'll come to you. Elsky Fatboy Slim said, we can still finish 3rd this season. Thoughts?
We can. We can still finish 3rd if we put some decent form together. And I'm saying that because all the other teams around about us are still dropping points and they're still likely to drop points throughout the season. I think the team that's the most consistent from when the World Cup finishes to the end of the season is probably the team that will finish 3rd. You know, it's just consistent. They can still lose games and draw games, but they just need to be consistent over a long period of time, picking up decent average points.
And Michael, on the polar opposite to that, Chris Finn said, relegated either this season or next.
Hope no. But, well, the form that we've showed the last sort of 6-7 games or whatever, that's relegation form. Do I think it'll continue? I bloody hope no. But yeah, it's weird though because we're as close to being relegation candidates as we are to being the other end of the table. It's because it's such a tight league and because everyone just beats everyone. So you go on a bad run of form, curtains.
Could be down there. But let's hope not. Chris, I love your tweets, but that was not one I loved. That was one that filled me with fear. So let's move on before I get even more scared. FFS Hibs had 3 tweets in a row, and they said, we are an average mid-table club who exceed that once or twice a decade. Our fan base is shite. We were averaging between 8 to 10k for years before the cup win in 2016 and are slowly getting back to that. We aren't very good and never really have been, bar the odd decent season. Nothing is going to change, ever. That was...
That's a positive outlook. Must be fun at parties, like.
That was very negative.
Not going to change ever.
Yeah, ever. I think sometimes we get a bad rap for being negative, but come on. Well, I hope that Hibs prove you and us wrong, and they turn out to be very successful for the next upcoming years, and we can all look back on this moment and laugh and hope that you were wrong. But thank you for sending in those points. But see, I'm saying people sent in the points. They didn't really. I put something out there to try and get interactions, and it did. And now we're taking advantage of that. But we're on to our final section, guys. Some of these are very random. Some of them are loosely Hibs related. Let's get into it. Ian T said the internet was infinitely better when people used to use their own names, and trolls and wind-up merchants weren't born or were taken down a few pegs in the pub, and everything in the haze was forgotten in the morning. But from Ian T. That strikes me very much like...
You had a heavy Friday night,
Yeah. You know that debacle between Lewis and the Hearts fan a few months back? The language there kind of reminds me of that. It's a bit like, yeah, if you say something online, you better back it up. Like, come on. Come on now.
Yeah, it screams very much. Don't make them like they used to. Times change and things move on. Evolution, they call that.
Evolution. Yeah, well, thank you for that, Ian. And then one I think I've actually got a repeat in here. It might be someone different that said it, but Tony Swanson said tremendous recruitment department. I think we answered that. Thank you. Expelgated said a couple dozen teens calling themselves ultras is embarrassing behaviour. I think that's more of a slight against Aberdeen than it is Hibs. But what's your guys' opinions of that? Of like young fans calling themselves ultras?
I think they're just. I think they put a lot of pressure on themselves when they don't need to. I think having sections a section of the support designed specifically to create an atmosphere and stuff like that it's good, but and to be honest with block 7 they got off to a bad start. Let's put it that way. They sort of alienated themselves against most of the support, but. In fairness to them, I think, as a lot of what I said there, I think a lot of it is they are just young boys. It's just immaturity a lot at the beginning. Probably a bit foolish, but they've grown up, I think. So, feelings that I had before that they were a pain in the arse and just magnets for trouble, that, I don't know, they are what they are. Don't have anything negative, but I think just people calling themselves ultras, you're just opening yourself up to folk ripping the piss at you. That's my 2 pence on the subject matter.
Ryan, Greg,
that's all that needs to be said from me.
Would agree. Well done, Michael. Good point. Well made again.
Thank you.
Excellent
I know.
stuff. Excellent stuff.
My one appearance a year.
One thing I will say, it's slightly different topic, but I hate it when you get like kids that are just having a good time and having a sing song with their mates, and people like slag them off. I think it's a really nice thing when kids go to games and have like try and create atmosphere, even if it is like a non-league game and you've got 10 kids with a drum just singing songs. I think it should be encouraged. Maybe ultras is a bit cringe and, as you say, a bit much pressure, but I think we should be encouraging kids to make atmosphere at games as much as possible, because I look back fondly at those days of being a dafty and enjoying myself, and yeah, I thought it was great times. But yes, Michael, as you said, good point, well made. One final one from Mel Clements. She said, Scottish football is only shite because of the booze ban.
Holy man, I would be absolutely manic if there was booze. Like, it would be crazy. It would be absolute pandemonium if there was booze involved in the stands. Like, Jesus.
But then again, see in England though, you can have a drink, but it's in the concourse.
That's right. Aye.
So no, and it's just an argument I make all the time, and it's because I do like a drink. But I think that when you make games at 12:30 to stop folk from getting bevied, you just got to make them drink more in a shorter period of time. It's completely counterproductive. It's like when you go to a function or whatever, and there's a free bar. Like the theory of having a free bar is that you're going to take the piss because you can just get as much as you want, but you didn't do that. You have a couple, and then it's like a sort of I don't know the psychology of it, but I don't know. I think the fact that you can't drink for 2 hours during the game makes you want to, because you need to prevent the oncoming hangover that comes at half time.
Oh, that's horrible.
So yeah, that's my 2 pence on the subject matter.
See, when they make games 12:30, it just encourages folk to get up earlier and get on the bevy earlier, and then they'll go out after it as well. So,
it is kind of productive in that sense, like 100%.
I think I've told this story before on the pod, but it's one of my favourites, so I'll tell it again. When the Scottish Cup, I think it was the final actually against Celtic, because was that one an early kickoff, or was it maybe the Hearts game? No, I think it was the Hearts game. The Hearts game was early kickoff, and then me and my sister stayed at my gran's, and then got through to the kitchen, and my sister's sitting having breakfast, and she's sitting there with chocolate shredded. She's like, "Oh, Nat, these are minging." And it's about maybe 8 o'clock, 8:15. I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, and she's like, I tried to put Baileys instead of milk in the sheddies because I wanted to get drunk. I was like, oh no. And I tasted it and it did not taste good. Like, I was like, that's a fucking shan choice. And so, yeah, we just proceeded to drink the Baileys instead. But yeah, Baileys on a match day was not a good idea. I would not recommend.
I think Baileys is a good idea. Any day, to be
That's a
honest.
Christmas drink, Harry.
It is.
Drink, man.
It is, but my sister likes drinking it, so I thought I'll have a drink with you. But guys, we've only got 3 more. Don't worry, I'm sure you are all sick of my voice by now. But Lionel Gibbs said the difference between 3rd and 8th in the league can be as little as 3 points. We get carried away when 3rd and throw our toys at the pram when 8th. Do we get a bit too reactionary in the moment? Should we try and always look at things as a whole, or is it fair enough to live in the moment?
Well, that implies that you're going to be thinking rationally, and football fans do not think rationally. So, but I do agree with the point. It's true. Yeah.
It's an emotive thing, though, isn't it? Football. Yeah. It's all emotionally charged, and it is in the heat of the moment. You lose the game, you're not going to go away thinking, but maybe in 2 weeks' time we'll take 3 points there and we'll be all right. Nah, you think that was fucking shite. What we're playing at. Do you know what I mean? It's emotionally charged. You think with your heart, not your head. Eh? So rational thinking and football didn't match up together. They don't coexist.
Well, sounds too.
And then we got 2 more. Second final one from the Hibs are here. I'd rather we were in a British Isles league, sick of the 4 times against Motherwell, Kelly, etc. every season after 36 years. Let's have Millwall away instead. What's your thoughts? My opinion, I think a league would suck, but I think nobody really cares about the League Cup too much. I think having like Scottish, English, Wales, then if you want to get either north of Ireland or Ireland involved, then you can. And I think a big massive stramash, because how much more fun would it be going to like Accrington Stanley away than like going to, I don't know, like FC Edinburgh?
A version of that already exists with the Welsh teams, Northern Irish teams, and lower league Scottish teams.
Aye, true, but get everybody involved.
No, I know. I'd love.
Can you imagine how long the draw for that would take?
I'd love a mad away to Shamrock Rovers or something like that.
That'd be class.
Yeah, you want Linfield away.
It's
absolutely destroy them, man.
It's a lovely thought in theory, but if you think our fans are pricks going to Fir Park, imagine what they'd be like 8 hours on a bus going to Yeovil or something.
Or how bad they would be on the ferry. Even bigger.
I'd be lobbing folk off the side, man. You're a prick, and you're a prick.
And you know those like terrible players that we laugh at because they used to play for us and now they play for like TNS. And then they'd go and score like a hat trick against us and knock us at the whatever the name of the cup is. Oh no! Actually, I'm sorry, we're aborting that idea. Guys, I've done a dud. I've got us a really negative one to end on. Do you want to end on a negative one, or should I make one up?
No, go on the negative.
No, end on the negative one because it sums it right up at the moment.
Harvey Manfreds Sunson said the Proclaimers are utter shite and Irvin Welsh is an utter see you next Tuesday. See what I mean by that's pretty negative, that. And I disagree. I love the Proclaimers.
I didn't realize we were going to be that negative.
Aye, I'll think. You guys discuss that, and I'll think of something positive to end it on.
I don't know who that guy is, but
I don't think there's anything that can be said. To be honest,
who the fuck is that guy?
I think our silence is speaking volumes there.
Aye.
Yeah, it's hard to take that in. Irvin Welsh is an absolute fucking legend in the writing world, and the Proclaimers, man. What can you say?
Class, man. Absolute tune out. All right, there you go. Apart from the obvious ones, there's maybe like 3 or 4 obvious ones. What's your favourite Proclaimers song? End it on that.
Well, what's the
Over and Done with?
Well,
Over and Done with quite good.
Yeah, good song. I'd say the 3 or 4 obvious. Sunshine on Leith, 500 Miles. There's another one that's obvious that I've forgotten off the top of my head.
Letter from America.
I will put that in there. And then Joyful Command. Any song that includes the word Hibs in it.
I'm on my way would be my favourite.
Oh, no, that was the obvious one I couldn't think of. Sorry, that was the obvious one.
Shit.
Yeah.
To be honest, Life with You is probably my favourite one.
Yeah, it's a nice one. Do you know There's a Touch?
Yeah, like that.
I love that song. Very nice song.
Mine's is Over and Done with because it's a bit nookie.
It's also about this podcast, I think, once because that was the final.
Ah,
I think.
what a segue. Well, and Michael. But guys, who on the pod, Ryan, Michael, Greg, thank you so much for joining me. People listening at home, this was something very different. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing your tweets being read out and dissected by the boys. We're hoping to be back next week. And yeah, apart from that, thanks so much for listening.
Cheers.
On the cabbage.
Goodbye.